The silence in our Oak Haven, Virginia home wasn't the peaceful kind you find on a Sunday morning. It was a heavy, pressurized silence, the kind that vibrates in your teeth right before a tectonic shift. I stood in the doorway of the master bedroom, a room I'd painted a soft, calming slate blue just last summer, and watched Sarah. She wasn't crying. She wasn't yelling. She was simply zipping. The sound of a suitcase zipper in a quiet house is a violent thing. It's the sound of 20 years being bifurcated. 20 years, Sarah, I said. My voice sounded thin, like a ghost trying to speak through a wall. 7,000 days. We've built a life. We've built a fortress here. You're just going to walk out because you feel restless? Sarah didn't look up. She was focused on a stack of silk blouses, folding them with a terrifying, one clinical efficiency. It's not restlessness, Mark. It's clarity. I woke up and realized I've spent 2 decades being the plus one to your predictable, safe, beige life. I'm 44 years old. If I don't leave now, I'll die in this house never having breathed a single breath of my own air. I reached out, my hand hovering near her shoulder, but I pulled it back. She felt like ice. I thought you loved our life. I thought you loved the stability. I worked 60-hour weeks at the firm so you'd never have to worry about a mortgage or a car payment. I did everything for you. That's the problem, Mark, she said, finally meeting my eyes. Her gaze was as cold as a Virginia winter. You did everything for me, but you never did anything with me. You're a provider, not a partner. You're a manager, not a man. I don't want a manager anymore. Before we go deeper into this story, take a second and hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. Here at Family Secrets and Revenge, we know that the biggest betrayals usually start with the word clarity. I expected a mediator. I expected my daughter Chloe to walk in and be the voice of reason. Chloe was 19, a sophomore at the university just an hour away. I had been her hero. I was the dad who coached the soccer teams, the dad who stayed up until 4 a.m. helping her finish her senior project. Surely she would see the madness in this. The front door slammed and I heard Chloe's boots on the hardwood. I turned, a plea already forming on my lips. Chloe, tell your mother. I stopped. But Chloe wasn't there to stop Sarah. She was carrying 2 empty duffel bags. She looked at me, and for the first time in 19 years, I saw an expression on my daughter's face that I didn't recognize. It was a mixture of pity and sharp, jagged resentment. Don't start, Dad, Chloe said, her voice flat. Mom told me everything. Everything? I asked, bewildered. What everything? That I've been a loyal husband? That I've provided every luxury you both have? That you've kept her in a gilded cage, Chloe snapped. You think money is the same thing as love. You think because we have a nice zip code in Virginia, we're supposed to just be your trophies. Mom wants to actually live. She wants to experience the world with people who have actual fire in their veins, not just blueprints and spreadsheets. Chloe, you're talking about your mother leaving your father. You're talking about destroying our family. Family is where you're understood, Dad. And honestly, I haven't felt understood here in a long time. I'm going with her. Julian has enough room for both of us. The name Julian Vane began to circulate through my house like a slow-acting toxin. While I had been at the office drafting the structural plans for the new hospital wing in Richmond, Sarah had been attending human potential seminars at a hotel downtown. That's where she met him. Julian wasn't just a man, he was a brand. He was a lifestyle architect, a wealth consciousness coach, and a man who looked like he'd been carved out of a mahogany tree. He promised Sarah a life of ascension. He told her that her husband, the boring architect, was a vibrational anchor, holding her back from her true destiny. And Chloe, Julian had charmed her too. He told her she was a creative powerhouse whose wings were being clipped by her father's insistence on a traditional education. He promised her a position as his lead brand ambassador. They weren't just leaving me, they were joining a cult of personality. As they walked out the door that evening, Sarah paused at the threshold. She didn't look back at the photos of our wedding on the mantle. She didn't look at the height marks we'd carved into the kitchen doorframe as Chloe grew. She just looked at her watch. The SUV is here, she said. Within 72 hours, the silence was replaced by the screech of legal machinery. Sarah didn't just want a divorce, she wanted a liquidation. Her attorney, a man named Sterling who looked like he'd never seen the sun, filed a motion for temporary support that was more than my monthly take-home pay. They wanted the Oak Haven house sold. They wanted 50% of my firm, Blue Ridge Architectural. They even wanted a portion of my projected future earnings, claiming that Sarah's sacrifices as a homemaker were the only reason I was successful. I sat in my lawyer's office in downtown Seattle, where I'd gone to clear my head and seek counsel from an old friend. "She's going for the jugular, Mark," my lawyer Dave told me. "She's not just looking for a settlement. She's looking to erase you. This Julian guy, he's in her ear. He needs capital for his global Ascension project, and you're the piggy bank." "She's my wife, Dave. 20 years. She was your wife, Mark. Now she's a predator's accomplice. And Chloe, she signed an affidavit saying you were emotionally distant. They're building a narrative to justify taking everything." Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on this story below. I read every single one. I want to know, if your own child signed a legal document calling you a monster just to get your money, how would you find the strength to keep going? The next 6 months were a blur of depositions and dark nights. I stayed in the Virginia house, but it wasn't a home. It was a battlefield. Every room reminded me of a lie. I'd walk past the dining room table and remember a Thanksgiving where we laughed until we cried. Was that fake? Was she planning her exit even then? I tried to reach Chloe. I sent her texts. "I'm not mad. Sure, I just miss you. Let's talk." She blocked my number. I sent her an email with a scan of her first drawing from kindergarten, the one I kept in my wallet for 15 years. She replied, "Stop using nostalgia to manipulate me. Julian says people like you use the past because you're afraid of the future. Don't contact me again, or I'll get a protective order." That was the moment something inside me finally snapped. The grief, which had been a heavy, wet blanket, suddenly caught fire. It turned into a cold, hard resolve. I called Dave. "Give them the house," I said. "Give her the firm's buyout. Give her the retirement accounts. I want the liquid cash I have in my personal savings and my tools. Let her have the gilded cage. Let's see how she likes the property taxes and the upkeep without my salary." I moved to Charlotte in North Carolina, in on a rainy Tuesday in November. I didn't tell a soul. I rented a 400-square-foot studio apartment above a bakery. It smelled like yeast and exhaust fumes. It was perfect. I was 50 years old, starting over with a folding table, a laptop, and a hunger I hadn't felt since I was 22. I didn't go out. I didn't date. I spent 16 hours a day in front of that screen drafting. I wasn't just building houses anymore. I was building a legacy that no one could ever take away. I started a new firm, Apex Urban Design. While I was eating ramen and drafting until my eyes bled, Sarah and Chloe were living the Ascension dream in Richmond. They had moved into a penthouse. Sarah was posting photos of her and Julian on private jets. Chloe was interning at fashion weeks. They were burning through the settlement money like it was oxygen, convinced they had finally found themselves. 2 years passed. In the world of architecture, word travels fast when someone starts winning every major municipal contract in the Southeast. Apex Urban Design was no longer a ghost. It was a juggernaut. We moved into a glass-walled office in uptown Charlotte. I had 20 employees and a reputation for being brilliant but unreachable. I had changed. The beige, predictable Mark was gone. I was leaner, my hair was a stark silver, and my eyes had a hardness that only comes from being betrayed by your own blood. Then the first ripples of the storm reached my shore. It started with a headline in the Richmond Times-Dispatch. "Local wealth coach under investigation for interstate fraud." Julian Vane hadn't been investing Sarah's money in global Ascension. He had been using it to pay off the returns of earlier investors. It was a classic Ponzi scheme. When the feds finally moved in, they didn't just take Julian. They froze every asset associated with him. My phone rang on a Tuesday evening while I was overlooking the Charlotte skyline. I didn't recognize the number, but the area code was Virginia. I knew. I think I'd known for months that this call was coming. "Mark?" The voice was thin. It sounded like paper being crushed. It wasn't the voice of the woman who had walked out of my house in Oak Haven. "Who is this?" I asked. I knew, but I wanted her to say it. It's, it's Sarah. Mark. Please don't hang up. Everything is gone. Julian? The FBI took him this morning. They took the penthouse. They took the cars. Mark, they're saying I owe the bank $4 million. That sounds like a very difficult situation, Sarah, I said. My heart didn't even skip a beat. I felt a strange clinical detachment. We have nowhere to go. She's having a breakdown. She's at a hotel, but her credit cards were declined. Mark, you're her father. You can't let her be on the street. If you were in Mark's shoes facing a situation like this, what would you do? Share your thoughts in the comments. Would you open the door to the people who tried to ruin you? Or would you let the fire they started finish the job? An hour after Sarah's call, an email landed in my inbox. It wasn't from a lawyer this time. Oh, it was from Chloe's personal account. Dad, I'm so sorry. I was young and stupid. Julian manipulated us both. Please, Dad, I'm your little girl. Help me. I stared at the screen. I'm your little girl. The same little girl who told me to lose her number. The same daughter who signed an affidavit calling me a financial abuser. I picked up the phone and called my head of security. I need a private car sent to the Marriott in Richmond, I said. Pick up a young woman named Chloe. Bring her to the office in Charlotte. Do not take her to my home. Take her to the conference room on the 40th floor. I wasn't going to let her sleep on the street. I wasn't a monster, but I wasn't a manager anymore either. I was a man who had learned the value of a foundation, and hers was about to crumble. The 40th floor of the Apex building was a cathedral of glass and steel. As Chloe walked in, she looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. The influencer, bravado, was gone. Her designer jacket was stained, and her eyes were rimmed with the kind of red that only comes from 24 hours of panic. Sit down, Chloe, I said. Dad, thank you, she sobbed. The hotel was going to call the police. She's at a shelter, Dad. A shelter. You have to do something. I don't have to do anything, Chloe, I replied. I leaned forward, the light catching the silver at my temples. Let's be very clear. You didn't come here because you missed your father. You came here because the ATM stopped giving you my hard-earned money and Julian's stolen money. That's not true. I've been thinking about you every day. Is that why you ignored my emails for 2 years? Is that why you told me to lose your number? Or was it just that Julian told you that vibrational anchors like me don't belong in your new world? Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part hit you the hardest in my story and share your thoughts in the comments. Here on Family Secrets and Revenge, we know that an apology without change is just manipulation. Chloe tried to play the victim card, spinning a tale of how Julian had brainwashed them. I didn't know he was a criminal, Dad. He was so convincing. The crime wasn't Julian's fraud, Chloe, I said. The crime was your disloyalty. You knew me for 19 years. You knew my character. And yet, or the second a man with a private jet told you I was the villain, you didn't just believe him. You joined him. You signed legal documents to help take my firm away. That's not brainwashing. That's greed. She went quiet. The tears stopped, and the old Chloe, the entitled woman she had become, flashed in her eyes. So what now? You're just going to let us starve to prove a point? You're a millionaire. Does it make you feel powerful to watch your daughter beg? It makes me feel nothing, I said. And that is the most dangerous place for you to be. Because if I felt angry, I'd still care. But looking at you right now is like looking at a stranger who stole my daughter's face. The door opened, and Sarah was escorted in. She looked like a ghost of the woman who had left Oak Haven. Her skin was sallow, and when she was wearing a coat missing 2 buttons. Mark, she whispered, the bank, they took the house today. They're putting it up for auction. Every memory we had, it's being sold for pennies. No, Sarah, I corrected her. Every memory I had, you sold for Julian's fantasy. I already mourned that house 2 years ago. To me, it's just wood and stone. To you, it was your last safety net. I made a mistake, she said, her voice cracking. I thought I wanted more. But the life I wanted was a lie. Please, Mark, give us a second chance. We can go back to Virginia. We can start over. Start over, I laughed. With what? The trust you burned? The firm I had to sell because you wanted a payout? There is no starting over, Sarah. There is only moving on. I stood up and walked to the window. I had prepared 2 envelopes. I laid them on the table. Here is what is going to happen, I said. In Sarah's envelope, there is a lease agreement for a small, furnished condo in a quiet part of Charlotte. It's paid for 6 months. There is also a debit card with enough money for groceries. After 6 months, the card expires. You'll need to have a job by then. Sarah reached for the envelope like it was a life raft. In Chloe's envelope, I continued, is a tuition voucher for the local state college. If you maintain a 3.5 GPA and work 20 hours a week at the campus library, I will pay for your final 2 years. If you miss a single class, the funding stops. That's it? Chloe asked. No car? No allowance? Dad, I'm an influencer. I can't work in a library. You were an influencer for a Ponzi scheme, Chloe. Now you're a student. Or you're a person with no place to sleep. The choice is yours. Sarah looked at the envelope, then at me. Are you coming with us to the condo to help us get settled? No, I said. I have a dinner meeting with my partner, Elena. She's an engineer who actually understands the value of a foundation. I'm not your husband anymore, Sarah. And Chloe, I'm not your ATM. I am a man providing a one-time act of mercy to 2 people I used to know. The realization finally hit them. I had outgrown them. I had built a skyscraper while they were burning down a cottage. You're cold, Mark, Sarah said, a hint of her old bitterness returning. You've become a monster. No, I said, opening the door for them. I just stopped being your victim. There's a difference. If you were in Mark's shoes, well, hearing your ex-wife call you a monster after you just saved her from a shelter, how would you respond? Share your thoughts in the comments. The next year was a test of character. I didn't check in on them. I heard from the landlord that Sarah had started working as an office manager for a local construction company. She wasn't going to galas, but she was paying her own bills. Chloe struggled. She tried to start a new comeback YouTube channel, but without the fake luxury, no one was interested. She finally realized that the only way forward was through the library. I received her first semester transcript, 3.8 GPA. She didn't send a note with it. She just sent the PDF. I was proud of her, but I didn't tell her. She needed to be proud of herself first. She needed to learn that a father's love isn't something you use to bail yourself out of bad choices. It's something you honor by being a person of integrity. I decided to fly back to Virginia for the auction of our old house. Not because I wanted to buy it back. I had no interest in living in a graveyard. But because I needed to see the final chapter close. The house looked smaller than I remembered. The slate blue paint was peeling. I saw Sarah there. She was standing in the back, wearing a simple work dress. When she saw me, she didn't come over. She just nodded. It was a nod of recognition, of shared history, and of finality. The house sold to a young family. I hoped they'd be happier there than we were. I walked back to my rental car, took one last look at the gilded cage, and drove toward the airport. Oh, I didn't look in the rearview mirror once. Today, Apex Urban Design is the leading architectural firm in the country. I'm standing on the balcony of my home in the Blue Ridge Mountains, a house I designed myself, built on solid rock. Elena is inside, laughing at something on the news. I think about the man I was 20 years ago. I was a good man, but I was a blind man. Sarah and Chloe didn't just break my heart, they broke my illusions. And in that breaking, they gave me the greatest gift of all, the truth. On Family Secrets and Revenge, we often talk about the satisfaction of seeing the bad guys lose. But the true revenge is outliving the version of yourself that they tried to destroy. Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part hit you the hardest in my story. I can share your thoughts in the comments. Mark's journey reminds us that life doesn't end when the people you love walk out the door. Sometimes that's exactly when life begins. It takes courage to stand in the ruins of a 20-year marriage and decide to build something higher, stronger, and more beautiful. If you've ever been the boring one, the provider who was taken for granted, or the one who was told they weren't enough, this story is for you. You are the architect of your own life. Don't let anyone else hold the blueprints. Thank you so much for watching. If Mark's resilience moved you, Please hit that like button and subscribe to Family Secrets and Revenge. Your support helps us bring more of these powerful stories to light. Don't forget to share your overall thoughts on the story in the comments below. I want to hear your perspective on whether Mark was too harsh or just fair. See you in the next one.